Good morning, you're watching World News and I'm your host, Klaudia Czerwińska. Ukraine has imposed emergency power restrictions in the aftermath of overnight and morning attacks by Russia. According to the Ukrainian Energy Minister, the strikes targeted a facility operated by Ukraine's state power distributor company. The cuts will be lifted once the situation in the grid is more stable. Overnight, the Russian army launched several cruise missiles from the Black Sea, raising alarms in Kyiv and other regions of Ukraine. Responding to the attack, Ukraine's state power operator Ukrenergo halted deliveries to major cities in the country. According to the company, the outages should minimize the potential adverse effects of the attack. While cleanup operations have already begun, the Ukrainian Energy Minister has said more information about the attack will be gathered once the security situation allows it. Additionally, Poland responded to the attack by scrambling fighter jets and putting its air defense forces on high alert. While hosting the president of the European Investment Bank, Volodymyr Zelensky has said his meeting with Donald Trump is a matter of when and not if. Additionally, the Ukrainian president announced he will hold a meeting with American Vice President J.D. Vance during the security conference in Munich.
Our teams are also working on our dialogue, our meeting between myself and President Trump. He spoke about it. I think the prospect is no secret. The question is when it will happen, what the capabilities of both sides are. Then there will be the Munich conference, where I will have a number of meetings, including with the Vice President, and I will also have meetings with President Trump's team, and my team will have separate meetings and conversations.
Washington's freeze of foreign funding efforts has begun impacting investigators of war crimes committed by Russian soldiers in Ukraine. According to a document seen by the Reuters news agency, Donald Trump's decision to suspend USAID's activities halted also dozens of jobs and tens of millions of dollars in aid. At stake are 6 American-funded projects at the Ukrainian Prosecutor General's office valued at $89 million. Funding for at least 5 of those initiatives has already been frozen. The affected efforts covered issues ranging from preservation of evidence to anti-corruption initiatives. 2 of the listed projects were funded by USAID, while 3 by the Bureau of International Narcotics and Law Enforcement. Out of the frozen funds, $47 million was allocated to investigating war crimes committed on Ukrainian soil. It was a substantive and productive conversation, Ukrainian Prime Minister Denis Shmyhal has said about his discussions with Polish Prime Minister Donald Tusk. The 2 leaders discussed cooperation in key areas such as defense and logistics. They also addressed the issue of modernizing border infrastructure. Previously, the modernization of the shared border was supported by USAID, which will soon be dissolved due to a decision by U.S. President Donald Trump. The Prime Ministers agreed to facilitate the further development of broader infrastructure also through the European Investment Bank, with which Ukraine has also signed new agreements on Monday. Prime Minister Donald Tusk says more money will be invested in Poland through the end of 2025 than ever before. It comes as the country's GDP steadily builds, with close to 4% growth expected over the coming months.
A breakthrough year for Poland. That's according to Prime Minister Donald Tusk, who fronted up here at the Warsaw Stock Exchange with a big-ticket speech, mapping out a new dawn for this country's economic future. And top of his list was one word: investment.
In Poland, investment in 2025 will amount to over 650 billion zlotys. And we're convinced, myself and my government, that it's a conservative estimate. Today, actually, I could say it will be closer to 700 billion rather than 650, and that's a record-breaking amount.
All up, Prime Minister Tusk is talking about at least €155 billion injected into the Polish economy. That includes tripling growth at shipping ports on the Baltic coast, pumping cash into railways, and finalising deals with the likes of Google and Microsoft. Speaking exclusively to TVP World, Finance Minister Andrzej Domański is confident that Poland can compete with the continent's traditional financial heavyweights.
Absolutely. We are joining the group of the strongest European economies. And year by year, we are accelerating. Our economy is improving, and therefore, in the terms of, for example, GDP per capita, we are doing better and better.
Just last month, preliminary figures revealed that Poland's economy grew by 2.9% in 2024. That's 2 percentage points higher than the European average. Now, Prime Minister Tusk wants to strike while the iron is hot. In Warsaw for TVP World, I'm Aaron Darman.
Norwegian F-35 fighter jets are taking part in an air policing and ballistic missile defense mission in Poland. The pilots were visited by top Polish and Norwegian officials on Monday.
The Polish and Norwegian defense ministers are observing exercises which are taking place at this airbase near Poznań, western Poland, with the participation of Polish F-16 jets and Norwegian F-35s. 4 such jets, 4 F-35A jets from Norway, have been stationed here for a policing mission since January. Actually, Poland is among those states that have already purchased F-35s, but are still waiting for them to be delivered. The first are expected to arrive in Warsaw in 2026. Poland purchased 32 such jets back in 2020 in a deal worth $6.5 billion. It's no coincidence that Norwegian F-35s are taking part in a mission to Poland. Poland and Norway are vital military partners. They're both members of NATO, and they cooperate under the multinational Corps Northeast, which is stationed in Szczecin in northwestern Poland. Marek Stiel, Poznań, TVP World.
It is unlawful and economically counterproductive for the U.S. to impose tariffs on European metals, the European Commission said in a blistering statement on Monday. The comments were issued in retaliation to U.S. President Donald Trump trumpeting his intention to impose 25% import duties on EU steel and aluminium imports.
The EU has slammed a recent announcement by US President Donald Trump in which he signalled that he would slap 25% tariffs on EU-imported metals. Now, he was talking about aluminium and steel and said that he would legislate the announcement on Monday, with it coming into force as early as Wednesday. But the European Commission was quick to retaliate, claiming the move was unlawful and unjustified. And while they told reporters today at a press conference that the aim is to seek a constructive dialogue with Washington, they intend to protect the interests of businesses, ratepayers, as well as consumers. Here is what a spokesperson had to say.
We stand against unjustified barriers to free and fair trade. We remain fully committed to a level playing field. We will always take the necessary steps to protect our economic interests, as well as European businesses, workers and consumers from unjustified tariff measures.
Now, that announcement from the 47th President of the United States is just a chapter in his ongoing international trade wars. He's already slapped 25% tariffs on goods from Mexico and Canada, as well as a 10% tariff on goods from China. We also know that the US Vice President, J.D. Vance, is expected to meet with European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen in Paris tomorrow. We're not sure whether they're going to talk about the escalating trade rift gripping these transatlantic allies, but we'll wait and see. Angela Scoogens from Brussels for TVP World.
U.S. President Donald Trump has signed an executive order imposing 25% tariffs on steel and aluminium imports into the United States. The measure has no exemptions and will hit mostly Canada and Mexico, the 2 largest steel importers to the United States.
Today, I'm simplifying our tariffs on steel and aluminum so that everyone can understand exactly what it means. It's 25% without exceptions or exemptions, and that's all countries, no matter where it comes from, all countries. If made in the United States, however, United States of America, there is no tariff, zero. So if it's made in the United States, there is no tariff. All you have to do is make it in the United States. We don't need it from another country.
Georgians in the country's capital protested for the 75th consecutive day, with police resuming the detentions of demonstrators. Last evening's protest saw opposition politician Levan Gogichaishvili among those arrested by the law enforcement in Tbilisi. Footage uploaded to social media shows dozens of police officers detaining opposition lawmakers in the city center. Protesters have been reporting increased aggression from law enforcement and a cordon being set up outside of the parliament building. Pro-European protests in Tbilisi have now been raging for 2.5 months. Recently, Georgian police returned to the central Rustaveli Avenue to prevent demonstrators from blocking the road. Hamas has postponed the release of the next batch of Israeli hostages, blaming what the group called Israeli violations of the ceasefire deal. In response, the Israeli Minister of Defense, Israel Katz, said the announcement stands contrary to the previously negotiated terms. 3 more hostages held in the Gaza Strip are due to be freed on Saturday in exchange for more Palestinians held in Israel. United Nations spokesperson Farhan Haq has said that any delays to the deal are a problem and all parties should stick to previously agreed terms. The announcement came shortly before people gathered in Tel Aviv to mark the 24th birthday of Israeli hostage Alon Ochel. Protesters at the event said the hostages should have been freed months ago and their blood is on hands of Benjamin Netanyahu's government. Tuesday marks the second and final day of the AI Action Summit taking place in Paris. The summit, co-hosted by the French President and Indian Prime Minister, will include a plenary session to discuss key common actions to take on artificial intelligence. Prominent political leaders from the US, EU, China, Canada, and Germany are in attendance and will be participating in the plenary discussion. No delegation from Poland was present at the event. On Monday, the €150 billion EU AI Championship initiative was announced at the summit with an aim to increase Europe's competitiveness when it comes to AI technologies. And finally, a story about how hungry mammals caused chaos in Austria's Montafon Alpine Valley, disrupting thousands of skiers' weekend plans.
Families and winter sports fans take to the slopes in Austria to make the best of the snow.
The weather is a dream and we have good snow, so on holiday, Tyroleans simply have to go skiing.
A love of snow, thousands echoed in Austria's Montafon Alpine Valley last weekend, until their evening plans were brought to a spectacular, skidding halt. Around 10,000 visitors and residents in the resort's villages were plunged into darkness. The Austrian Press Association reported that lights went out in hundreds of homes, shops, restaurants, streets and traffic junctions along the valley. Emergency workers combed the cable networks, suspecting high-voltage lines had been damaged by construction crews. But the cause of this chaos was these cuddly creatures. It emerged several hours later that high-voltage cable insulation had been chewed through by martins. The exposed wires tripped safety switches, shutting down a series of transformer substations. Power workers eventually restored supplies some 6 hours later.
And so we'll leave you with this very cute image of those little mammals that caused all the trouble in Montafon before Ashim Kumar is back in the studio with another interview. We'll see you soon.